This will be, I hope, a very informative and productive discussion with everybody here. I am just going to moderate. I'm going to turn the floor over to the folks who did all the hard work here, Drs. Devon Crawford, Andrew Beckel-Mitchener, and Ryan Richardson. And we will start out with our analysis of the brain demographics and then move on to what BRAIN is doing to address some of the issues that you will see come up here. So after this presentation, we'll have, I hope, maybe half an hour plus, 30, 40 minutes to have some good and robust discussion about what we're doing and what we could be doing better. Okay, so first up is Devon Crawford. All yours, Devon.
So Devon did suggest she was having technical difficulties by email, so we're seeing if she has audio. Kristen, do you know if Devon was able to join?
So she's in the meeting, but if she's
Maybe
trying to talk,
audio.
we cannot hear her.
Yes, we can't hear you, Devon, if you're talking.
It looks like she's muted. I don't know if we can
Devon,
unmute
I've
her.
sent you a request to unmute if you're there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
There we go.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Great.
okay. I have had, so as an apology to everyone, I have had an exceptional number of technical difficulties. Zoom just kicked me out again. And so we do have somebody on deck to take over if you lose me, but let's hope this goes well. Hopefully you have at least my audio. So as John said, yes, I will be discussing the BRAIN Initiative Investigator demographics with an eye towards the update with the fiscal year 2020 data. And you have seen some of these analyses before in a slightly different format, but we will also be showing you a few new analyses that we've done. And I also wanted to make a note that we will be putting these data on our website, so keep an eye out for that. Ryan, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so the NIH BRAIN Initiative definitely encourages inclusivity in research, but there are multiple kinds of diversity that we are keeping our eye on. And so this language is actually taken from an RFA that we published, but some of the types of diversity that we are looking at include transdisciplinary research, so collaborations among neuroscientists as well as people from other fields like computational biology, physics, engineering, etc. We also look at career stage, make sure we're getting a good mix of career stages, individuals from diverse backgrounds, including race and ethnicity, disabilities, gender, institution type, which can be defined a few different ways, but we will be looking at it based on their level of research, as well as whether or not they are minority serving. And finally, geographic distribution. So next slide. So we will be starting with transdisciplinary research. Next slide, please. So we gathered disciplinary data from the annual BRAIN Initiative Investigators meeting. During the registration process, we asked people to self-identify their disciplinary expertise. And we explicitly asked this question in addition to or outside of neuroscience as a field, or otherwise we would get most people saying neuroscience and not specifying what they do within neuroscience. And you can see here that we get a wide variety of disciplines, and actually our top one is engineering. And so we believe that we are doing pretty well in this area, getting a nice variety. And you can see that our next ones are physiology, systems biology, neuroimaging, behavioral sciences, and down through cellular biology. And we even have a pretty good showing from, computer science, ethics, philosophy, or law. Can you go to the next slide, please? And so now we will be moving to career stage. Next slide. So the way we define career stage during these analyses are based off of the year of terminal degree, so the PhD, the MD, et cetera. And we've put them into three buckets. The early career stage, which we define as 0 to 14 years since the terminal degree. The mid-career, which is 15 to 29 years since the terminal degree, and then late career, which is 30 years plus. And you can see the distribution among the different career stages in the histogram on the bottom. And our median year since terminal degree is around 17 years. But I want to draw your attention to the right. And this is where we have the funding rates. So these are the number of awards over the total number of applications for people in each of these buckets. And there's often the conception that late career researchers have the highest funding rate, but at least among our BRAIN initiative investigators, that doesn't appear to be true. They actually have the lowest funding rate. But there are smaller numbers of late career researchers, so there might be some noise in that data. But what this does tell us is that we're getting a pretty good showing of early career and mid-career investigators in terms of funding rate. Next slide, please. So next we'll be looking at individuals from diverse backgrounds. Next slide. So we'll start with gender to orient you to these graphs on the left. These are the percentage of women who are amongst our pool of contact PIs, both in the applicants as well as the awardee pools. And you can see that, at least overall, which are the horizontal bars, we have about the same percentage in the applicant pool and the awardee pool. And this trend holds when we add in all of the MPIs as well as the contact PIs, which is the middle graph. And so this suggested to us initially that we probably don't, at least at the level of funding of the applications we receive, have a clear disparity. But we actually looked at that more closely by calculating the funding rates of male and female researchers in the graph on the right. And you can see that indeed we do have overall a fairly similar funding rate in male and female researchers. But I do want to draw your attention to the blue data points, especially in the graph all the way on the left, that we are getting a much lower percentage of female researchers than NIH as a whole. And so although there's no apparent disparity in the funding of the applicants we receive, we believe we are receiving a very low number of applications to begin with. So next slide, please. So this is a similar analysis except for race and ethnicity. And you can see the data that we have for underrepresented minorities, or URMs. And they're very similar trends in that we don't see a huge difference between the percentage of URMs in the applicant pool and the awardee pool, whether we're looking at contact PIs or all MPIs and contact PIs together. But I do want to make it very clear that in this data set, we're missing race and ethnicity data of upwards of 20% of BRAIN initiative investigators. They don't fill out this information completely in ERA Commons. And so the precision and the accuracy of these data, it might be a little bit noisy. So we can't attest to how exactly these numbers are. But you can see in the graph all the way on the left that the numbers we see overall are about on par with what NIH sees. And if you look at the graph on the right, our funding rate for URMs is not different, if anything, maybe slightly higher, but as I said, it's a bit noisy than the non-URMs. But we do appear to have less of a difference between the two groups than NIH overall. But again, the data are noisy, so it's hard to read too much into that. Next slide, please. So next, I want to turn our attention to team science. So this is looking at diversity among persons represented on multi-investigator project teams. Next slide. And so about 50% of our BRAIN awards have multiple PIs. So this is 2 or more PIs/MPIs on a grant. And so, our portfolio compared to general RPG grants is actually very well represented in team science. Next slide, please. And so looking at the demographics of people who are on these teams, we looked at gender on the left and race and ethnicity on the right for teams that had at least 2 people on the team. And you can see on the left that more than half of our teams are male only. And on the right, you can see that more than half of our teams are non-URM only. And if you look at the flip side, we only have 1.4% that are female only. And we have 0% that are URM only. We do have a large number of unknowns, and that's due to at least one person on the team not providing their gender or race ethnicity data. But it is clear that the majority of our teams are male and the majority of our teams are non-URM. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we are on institution type. As I said, it can be defined a couple different ways. So next slide, please. The first way that we looked at institution type was through the NIGMS definition of research active, research intensive, and highly research intensive. And this is based off a 3-year average of RPG funding from NIH. So research active is less than 7.5 million a year. Research intensive is 7.5 to 20 million a year. And highly research intensive is more than 20 million per year. And you can see on the graph that we have looked at the funding rates of each group. And you can see that the highly research intensive, which receives the most money on average, also has the highest funding rate. But again, I want to draw your attention to the variability, for example, in research intensive institutions, because they're only about 4% of our applications. There's a lot of variability in those numbers, but it is clear that we receive the majority of our applications from well-resourced institutions, and they also seem to be doing pretty well in terms of funding rate. Next slide, please.
Devon, can I just stop you for 1 second?
Yes, absolutely.
I see Eve has her hand raised, and I think we would want probably to hold discussion till after, but Eve, if you have a clarifying question, I think that would be fine.
Yes, absolutely. I can't see the hand, so yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I know you can't see. Yeah,
It was
right.
several slides back, and I was just, and it was just asking whether those pie charts were really skewed by the fact that most of the multi-investigator applications were 2 or 3 and not large, right? So the numbers would be quite different if you're talking about applications with 2 or 3 PIs versus the ones with 10 PIs.
Yes, although if you look back at the histogram, I don't know, Ryan, if we can go back to that really quick. Yeah, so the 2 or 3 PIs are the vast majority of our team science grants, whereas the ones that are 4+ are a very small minority of our grants. So it is probably mostly driven by teams that are 2 to 3 people.
Okay.
Okay, so another way that we looked at the institutions was by whether or not they were designated as a minority serving institution. And so this was taken from our Impact2 database, where NIH maintains a list of minority serving institutions. And when we divided up the applications based on whether or not they were on this list, we saw that non-minority serving institutions, which are something like 93% of our applications, also appear to have a higher overall funding rate than the minority serving institutions. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so finally, we will look at geographic distribution. Next slide. Okay, so on the left, you can see our applications and awards based on which state they are in the United States. And as expected, large states like California and New York have a lot of applications and also a lot of awards. But we wanted to sort of normalize this a little bit to get a better sense of how each state is doing. So on the right, you can actually see the funding rate. Darker the color is the higher the funding rate. And interestingly enough, you can see that states like New Hampshire, New Jersey, and Washington have some of the highest funding rates, more so than states like California and New York. However, you will notice some color missing from the middle of the graph. And if you look on the left, we did receive applications from these states. But if you look at the bottom on the left, we did not award applications from these states. So although it's a small number of awards, we are seeing awards missing from some smaller populated states, which, next slide, please, is related to whether or not these states are IDEA eligible. And so NIGMS has indicated some states, which is about half of the states in the US, that historically have received low NIH funding. And what we did is sort of looked at the information on the previous slide, but divided up the funding rates based on whether or not the states were IDEA states or non-IDEA states. And you can see here clearly that the non-IDEA states have a higher funding rate than those from the IDEA states. So next slide, please. All right, so overall, what we see in the data are a reasonable success at recruiting people in non-neuroscience fields. And we don't see any apparent disparities in funding for women in URMs, but there are caveats that go along with this, including the low applications from people in these groups and some noise in the data. We also see that, as expected, many applications awards are concentrated on the coast, and that the well-resourced institutions appear to be competing better for some of our awards. And with that, I will pass it along to my colleague, Andrea Beckel-Mitchener, the Deputy Director of the BRAIN Initiative, unless there are other questions that I can answer now.
Hey, this is Kaf. I just had a quick question. So most of the data around funding disparities, specifically for underrepresented minorities, that's been shown across NIH institutes, are for Black scientists. Did you break underrepresented minority by different racial or ethnic groups, or are you just looking at all that pooled information together?
So the graphs are showing the information pulled together, because as soon as we break it apart, they become too low for us to be allowed to report the exact numbers. But I did specifically look, for example, at the African American group, and I can say that we have less than 11 total amongst our PIs, contact PIs and MPIs put together.
Mala has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering about the multi-PI teams that had about 30% women on them, I think. Did you differentiate between females as lead PIs versus just members of the team?
So for that particular analysis, no, we just looked at the totality of the team.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? I don't see any other hands. I think Andrea, go right.
All right. My video is a little choppy, so hopefully you can hear me. And I may actually turn my video camera off. I'm just sort of in the middle of the sandwich between two parts of this, pardon me, excuse me, parts of this presentation. So next slide, please, Ryan. We just wanted to introduce a couple of ideas based on Devon's analysis. And again, thank you, Devon. You put a lot of work into that, and it's really comprehensive. It's probably the most comprehensive analysis that we've been able to do in the BRAIN Initiative to date. So as you know, we recognize that there are lots of benefits to a diverse scientific workforce, and we're certainly looking for more of that in the BRAIN Initiative, looking to foster innovation and competitiveness and the learning environments where the research is done, improving the quality of research, and making sure that there are opportunities for all, advancing the likelihood that underserved populations can both participate in and benefit from the research that's done in the BRAIN Initiative. So we wanted to point to a couple of things that we're doing currently. Next click. So as many of you know, those of you that have been on council for a while, we do have some activities in the training space specific to the BRAIN Initiative and related programs. So we do support diversity supplements. For any of you that have BRAIN grants, we would be very happy to consider a supplement to support scholars from underrepresented groups. We also have our K99 R00 program, which you have seen a funding plan for, and our most recent set of awards. And in this case, our K99 differs from the parent, the general NIH K99, in that we are targeting underrepresented minority trainees as well as women for our K99 program. And finally, we have some new activity in what is called the D-SPAN. It's another phased award. This one goes from pre-doc to post-doc F99K00. This is actually a program that's run through the Blueprint Neuroscience program here at NIH, and the BRAIN Initiative has just recently signed on. And this allows us to support even more trainees through this program. For example, we're formally joining this announcement, this RFA, in the next iteration, but even this round, John has invested in 6 additional awards. So we feel pretty good about that. So that's in the trainee space. Most recently, you may have seen an announcement that just went out on the street. Again, this is targeting one of the areas that you just saw in Devon's presentation. as an area that we have had less than stellar activity in. And so this particular RFA is for U24 grants, and this is to support reagent resources for the cell type specific armamentarium projects that you've heard about and you'll hear more about. And this is really for distribution network enabling technologies for neuroscience. And in this award, we are asking for applications specifically from minority serving institutions and those that are IDEA eligible. As you just saw, our numbers are low for both of those. So again, another targeted activity where we are trying to build out some diverse perspectives. Speaking of diverse perspectives, the latest activity, and I will transition to Ryan in just a moment, is something that you heard about from John recently. He sent out an email to all of you, and this is now publicly available on our website, and one of the links is shown at the bottom of the slide. And this is something the BRAIN Initiative has spearheaded, and we're calling it the Plan for Enhancing Diverse Perspectives. Essentially, this is a new requirement for all BRAIN FOAs outside of the training space, that all applicants must include a summary of the strategies that they're proposing that will advance the scientific and technical merit of the project through expanded inclusivity. This is a unique activity at the NIH, although I'm really pleased to say that we're getting a lot of attention both within NIH and outside of NIH. It's been gratifying to see the reaction to this new program, which we, again, is coming into effect starting now. All of this put together is a way that we think is really important to build the capacity and create opportunities to enrich the research environments through diversity, equity, and inclusion. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to Ryan Richardson, who joined our office, the Office of the Brain Director, last August as a AAAS fellow. And Ryan has been instrumental and central to helping to roll out this PEDP activity. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about that. And I think at the end, I'll be happy to answer additional questions. Ryan?
Thanks for the lead in, Andrea. As the final presentation in this session, I'll be providing an overview of the newest strategy for the BRAIN Initiative that we've employed to promote scientific excellence through enhanced diversity and inclusion, what we've termed here a Plan for Enhancing Diverse Perspectives, or PEDP. Sorry, my slide stopped advancing. Okay, there we go. So in thinking about a through line that unites the different sections of this session, I was reminded of a line from the BRAIN 2025 report that laid out the initial strategic vision for the BRAIN Initiative. And I found this quote in particular, and I think it's quite striking. So it says, "No single research or discovery will solve the brain's mysteries." And what I love about this quote is twofold. First, that it lays out the awesome challenge before us, right? To understand the brain, that which truly defines us as humans. And secondly, it suggests that the scale of this challenge is greater than any one body of research, and by extension, beyond any single researcher, and that it really requires a community effort. The report goes on to state that this community approach is necessary because of the vast benefits that are derived from having diverse perspectives focused on a singular effort. Moreover, this diversity of minds takes a variety of different forms, which all add to the rich and innovative pursuit of scientific discovery. And importantly, the BRAIN Initiative is uniquely positioned to leverage this resource to its fullest extent. So again, in order to tackle this incredible challenge laid before it, to understand the brain's mysteries and to support the best science towards that effort, the BRAIN Initiative must promote the inclusion of diverse perspectives. That said, earlier in this session, Devon laid out the case very beautifully that while BRAIN has had some success in certain aspects of bringing diverse perspectives into the fold, it's really struggled in other areas and is likely leaving good talent on the table. To address many of these gaps, as Andrew reviewed, BRAIN has employed a variety of different training mechanisms, and recently a funding opportunity announcement aimed at capacity building specifically at underserved institutions. However, these represent only a fraction of the various funding mechanisms that BRAIN uses to support its scientific portfolio. So in thinking about that broader RPG pool, the research grant project pool, the R1s, the R21s, U1s, et cetera, the question has become, how do we encourage all applicants to consider the inclusion of diverse perspectives? So starting this summer, BRAIN is taking a new approach to its FOAs, and this includes highlighting the importance of diverse perspectives and very explicitly outlining this in the background section of all FOAs. And moreover, we're going to be requiring that applicants to most BRAIN Initiative FOAs submit, again, what we're calling a Plan for Enhancing Diverse Perspectives, or PEDP, as part of the application. With the PEDP, applicants are expected to integrate plans for the inclusion of diverse perspectives within the research strategy, and to also provide a summary of these efforts as a one-page other attachment. The FOA will contain instructions. Yep.
Can I just pause you for a second? I'm sorry, Eve has her hand up. Eve, do you have another clarifying question?
I can wait until the end.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. So the FOA will contain instructions for elements that should be included in the PEDP, but perhaps most importantly, evaluation of the PEDP will be incorporated into the scored review criteria. PEDPs are expected to contain the following elements, again, as defined by the applicant and the circumstances of their proposed research and the research environment. So this includes, again, a summary of the strategies to advance scientific and technical merit through expanded inclusivity, also timeline and benchmarks for the PEDP, as well as approaches to assess progress towards meeting these goals. Here we've listed some examples of potential strategies that might be included in a PEDP, and have many more on the PEDP website. So I would encourage you to visit that. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of these, but rather wanted to highlight a few. So one we have listed here is training and mentoring opportunities to encourage participation of students, postdoctoral fellows, and co-investigators from diverse backgrounds. Also partnerships that might enhance geographic heterogeneity, as well as activities that enhance the recruitment of research participants, particularly those from diverse and traditionally underrepresented groups. In line with the goal of the PEDP to enhance scientific excellence through the inclusion of diverse perspectives, we've added PEDP-specific questions to the review criteria that task reviewers to evaluate the alignment of the applicant's PEDP with the research goals as outlined in their application. For example, with the significance criterion, it goes on to state, to what extent the efforts described in the PEDP further the significance of the project. A few additional notes here for FOAs requiring a PEDP. If an application comes in without a PEDP, that application will be considered incomplete and withdrawn. Furthermore, the PEDP and how well it does in review will be considered as part of the funding recommendations. So this is just to underscore that the PEDP and its content will matter. Importantly, though, we recognize that every PEDP will be unique and will depend, again, on the circumstances of the proposed research and its environment. And applications may also include allowable costs towards the implementation of PEDP strategies. So some current efforts, as Andrea mentioned, BRAIN is piloting this new effort in select funding announcements this year, and it has already been included in one RFA so far, RFA MH21180. So I definitely encourage you to check that out to see how we've incorporated this new PEDP requirement. Beyond that, however, we have in place a couple different teams working on this new initiative for BRAIN, both an implementation team working on the rollout and also a program evaluation team to think about the long-term outcomes and impact for this program. So thinking a little bit about the implementation, we acknowledge that this is a new endeavor for not only BRAIN and NIH as a whole, but also the broader research community. And to that extent, we put into place a team to coordinate the strategic rollout of the PEDP. And this has involved developing materials both to inform and guide stakeholders through this new process, stakeholders including applicants, program staff, reviewers, grants management, etc. So we have a website that we rolled out a few weeks ago that includes not only an overview of some of the elements that we discussed here, as well as some frequently asked questions, and again, an expanded list of examples. And we are also using a variety of different avenues for outreach and getting the word out to the important stakeholders here. Again, we're in early stages of evaluation, but we will be considering both the short-term outcomes focused on the process of administering the PEDP, and also the longer-term outcomes that will ultimately track the impact of the PEDP. To tackle this challenge of understanding the impact of this program, we've assembled a team of experts in program evaluation from offices around NIH, and we're confident that they can help us in develop a strategic framework for evaluating the impact of this PEDP initiative. So I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the incredible effort from the family of NIH staff that support the BRAIN initiative here. In particular, BRAIN's Deputy Director, Andrea Beckel-Mitchener, and her tireless efforts in championing and pushing forth the PEDP. It's really been a Herculean effort. Also the contribution of members from BRAIN Team TIE as well. The PEDP was developed in consultation and collaboration with offices across HHS and NIH, including the Office of General Counsel, OGC, the Office of Extramural Research, OER, and with the support and guidance from not only the BRAIN IC directors, but also the broader group of NIH Institute directors. I also want to acknowledge the really fantastic efforts of the PEDP rollout team here as well. So to summarize these three presentations, I think we've made the case that conversations of equity, diversity, and inclusion are not separate from those on scientific discovery and innovation, but rather that these elements are necessary and required to promote the best science. That said, there's no one avenue, no one pathway to creating a community rich with diverse perspectives, but rather that a multi-pronged approach is necessary. And we've outlined a number of those efforts from the BRAIN Initiative. Specifically with the PEDP, the BRAIN Initiative encouraged the research community to broadly consider how diverse perspectives advance the research they propose. Finally, despite the gaps and shortcomings that we've seen and more that are uncovered, we're facing a really unique opportunity here. And that is that through these collective efforts and more, we can really all bring about the culture change necessary to address the inequities and systemic biases in biomedical research, and ultimately work together to advance scientific innovation and excellence through the inclusion of all voices. So with that, I will end my presentation and pass it back to John to moderate the discussion.
Thank you, Devon, Andrea, and Ryan, for not just these really great presentations, but for all the work that you've done over the last year to make this happen. So now we have, I think we'll take about 20 minutes or so for discussion. I'm going to let Kara moderate and call on people. So if you have a question, I don't know, is the electronic hand raising function working, or you can just wave? But...
Yep. So we're going to start with Eve and then Al and then Samir.
So I think you've left out the big elephant in the room. And there are two things that are a bit at odds in what you guys are talking about. So the biggest source of intellectual vitality and diversity in our science actually comes from our international postdocs. So I currently have a lot of postdocs, including people from China, Russia, one originally from Argentina, two originally from India, one with a green card, one not. And of my total of 8, 3 are people who now have green cards, so they would be considered in the US. But if I look at the conversations in the lab and the intellectual diversity of what goes on, it comes from people coming from other fields and largely from people coming from other countries who've been trained very differently and think about problems very differently, which isn't to say that we don't want to solve our American, our USA minority inclusion problems as well. But I think by saying by neglecting the fact that so much of the richness of our intellectual work comes from international collaborations and people who've come here, some who stay and some who go, I think you're sort of walking away from an incredible richness of the vitality of our science. Now, I understand why, you have to sort of, Congress's mandates about F-31s, F-32s, Ks and all that, or whatever. But I think it's a mistake to not acknowledge the fact that our international scholars really contribute enormously to our science.
So I can jump in real quick, John, on that just really quickly, because it's a really important point, and we didn't highlight it in our talk, but on our web guidance for the PEDP, we certainly do include international collaborations as a form of diversity, and bringing in those perspectives is important. As you note, the actual policy that NIH has to follow is around the US demographics, if we're talking about underrepresented minorities and other disadvantaged groups. But certainly the broader context of recruiting diverse perspectives and acknowledging and looking for those perspectives does include our international collaborators as well, and those who come to the US to study and train and do research.
And some of them stay and really enhance those communities, and some go home and really tie the whole world together. But I think on all of these problems, we're talking about a world community. We're not talking about a US community.
Absolutely, we agree.
Eve, I couldn't agree more, and we are doing things to try to promote international collaborations.
I don't think you have to promote them, they're there. I think you have to acknowledge them. In other words, I think the language about inclusivity should acknowledge the value of those international contributions.
Yeah, and
I'd like to.
We are acknowledging that in the information. We'll make a note to emphasize that as well.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I was remiss in my speeding through the presentation due to my issues, but I would like to say that in addition to all of the applications and awards that we have in the United States, we do have awards to at least 24 other countries. So we definitely are trying to track that sort of collaboration.
Can I just comment
Okay.
on?
Yeah.
I just, I have a concern here, though, that if we start to focus on international researchers and we want to count them in diversity and inclusion, that we're neglecting the kind of systemic disadvantage that underrepresented minorities experience in the United States, in educational systems, in getting jobs in higher education, and all of those other things. And then we're sort of padding our inclusivity and our diversity by including people who come from countries where they don't experience those same disadvantages.
I understand that, and I'll stop in a second. I just think the rhetoric should match what you're trying to achieve. If what you're trying to achieve is solving the problems of American-born and American nationalized people, then the rhetoric should use a slightly different language about inclusivity, because the vitality of our science really depends on those international people as well. That's all I'm saying. And I agree with you completely, but I think those two have to be a little bit pulled apart.
Okay, let's go to Al. Thanks, Eve.
Hi, thanks. So great presentations by Devon, Andrea, and Ryan. I have just a couple questions, and what I'm trying to figure out is how do we know when we're good, right? So there seems like there's a lot of data collection and trying to understand this space. And I've heard through some of the presentations is we have good diversity here, we have good diversity there, we don't over here. Maybe we need more work. But what I haven't seen is metrics, or I haven't seen minimum thresholds, or I haven't seen some target, right, about where do we want to be. And so when a number of programs are being spun up to try and affect the numbers, it's not clear where we want to drive, right? When do we say that we've achieved enough, let's say in transdisciplinary research that's going on across the initiative, that this distribution looks good? Or this distribution is a little bit weak in these given disciplines, and this is maybe where we want to put a little bit more effort and fine tune how we target some of the funding initiatives or things. So I thought, the presentations were great. The part that I was missing is are we healthy? Are we not healthy? And if we're not healthy, where are we not healthy? And I was just wondering, any thoughts there?
Yeah, Al, that's a great point. I mean, we're definitely working on that. It's important to know what success looks like so you know whether you're getting closer to it and ultimately whether you achieve it. This is a big task in front of us with the rollout team, is evaluation. What metrics are we going to set for ourselves? What intermediate goal? And what final goals, if there even are such a set of things. I mean, it kind of depends on how we agree to look at the overall issue. Do we want the workforce to reflect the U.S. population? We are U.S. federal government funding institution. I think that would not be an unreasonable target to set. But there's going to be a lot of nuance in that as well. So these are the issues we're trying to look at. I mean, I don't mean to be glib, but we really only have one way, and that's to go up right now. So this is how we plan to start.
Okay.
Samir, and then Jim, Carol, and Elba.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for the presentation. The fact that this is going to be required of most all applications, is going to obviously have a big multiplier effect in terms of having just, the whole community start thinking about these things, which obviously must have been, a reason to do this. As that happens, there's going to be a lot of ideas that come forth. So what's the plan for, I guess on the one hand, I mean, you don't want to tell everybody what everyone else is doing because you want everyone to think of their own ideas. On the other hand, some of these ideas really need to be disseminated. So how will that be done so that, like everybody can kind of benefit from the ideas of groups while still generating their own?
Yeah, I think that's a really fantastic question, and it's one that we're approaching in a few different ways. So one of the ways we're approaching that idea is that we very much recognize that with this rollout, it is something very new, right? And it is something that will need to be iterated over time. But in terms of your point about kind of sharing some of those lessons learned, I think the leadership at BRAIN is really interested in providing forums where investigators in the BRAIN community can come together and have those conversations. John can jump in here, but I think at the upcoming BRAIN investigators meeting, for example, there's going to be a forum just like that. And we really hope that this can be an opportunity for the community to, again, come together, share some of those best practices, and learn from each other and grow and evolve as a community.
Yeah, just to jump in, thanks, Ryan. I mean, actually, at the last MCWG meeting, I think a couple of you, I think Carol and Elba, had an idea about including a panel discussion about how to promote greater inclusivity in BRAIN. And I think we set a record. We actually moved on that before the meeting was over. So Elba and I will be moderating a session, a plenary session at the upcoming investigators meeting. And the goal here is to talk about ways to give people tools and resources to help them build more inclusive networks. So we'll be talking about the issues, but really geared toward what people can do. And it's about sharing experiences, sharing life experiences, professional experiences, and actually giving people some ideas they can act on. So these will be very important in terms of not just getting the word out, but actually giving people some ways to move forward and be successful at this.
Very good. Jim, you had your hand up, but it's down.
Yeah, no, thanks, Carol. I was going to actually ask more about the evaluation metrics, and I think it's been answered. I think it really is a very critical component. Obviously, you guys are just getting started, and it's hard to know what those will be, but I'm really glad to hear that you're paying so much attention to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Carol, please go ahead. I think you're on mute, Carol.
Muted.
2 points. For the DSPAN and the K99, brain-specific K99, are PEDPs required? Because they're from applicant trainee types.
Great question, Carol. So we are leaving the training mechanisms out from this because they're focused on individuals. We're really focusing on asking people or mandating that investigators on projects tell us what they're going to do to bring diverse perspectives into their research programs.
Second point, with regard to the BRAIN meeting, could you also all comment that newly there's going to be posters, right? DEI posters, and another way of sharing ideas that the community have implemented to increase diversity at every level. So
yes.
I think there were a number of them submitted. I think, I forget the numbers, like 24, right?
23, yes. Thanks for reminding. There is actually a DEI category at the poster session, so I encourage all you to see that. Sam popped this in the chat, but those of you on the video cast won't see that. There will be DEI posters. There will also be opportunities for virtual in-person discussions throughout the meeting in this space, and then hopefully culminating in our panel discussion on the afternoon of the third day. But thanks, Cheryl, for reminding.
Actually, one last point. As per Eve's championing, supporting foreign postdocs and trainees, it's very confusing because the normal K-99 is open to those with green cards at least, and who are foreign. And actually, you don't even have to have a green card, I think, but the BRAIN one is not. So it's a bit unfortunate, although I agree with what Sid said and what everything that has been said. It's just another form of inequality in a certain level.
It's certainly a frustration, but in order, and people here with more experience can correct me if I'm wrong, in order for us to designate the diversity targeted mechanism, this is what we're stuck with. Is that correct?
That is correct. For those diversity mechanisms, we have to follow the NIH policy and definitions.
Okay.
Which is Congress's policy, right?
Right.
I think Elbow is the last person who had her hand up.
Yes, I am. Thanks to the NIH team for providing this wonderful presentation. I mean, I feel like BRAIN is doing exactly what needs to be doing to have an intentional approach to what needs to happen, gathering the metrics, having important conversations. So what I want to put on the table is that to find the explanations and move forward, we need to consider intersectionality, and intersectionality that does not only consider gender, ethnicity, but considers discipline. So the very first slide showed us that about 50% of the BRAIN PIs are engineers. And I would think that this group knows what the representation of women and minorities is in engineering. So if from the get-go, the solicitation and the intention is to build technology that requires engineering, well, right away, you've excluded people by virtue of the discipline. And that is not a bad thing. That is simply a target opportunity area to really build intentionally the inclusive aspect, because we can invite people, but if they do not have the skills to do the project that is required by the solicitation, they will not be able to do so. So I'm just going to put something in the chat for this group. It shows you where minorities and women get their PhDs, but I think revisiting those solicitations and how they're phrased may need to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Elba. It's a great point. Yeah, we definitely need to keep these issues in mind, but also at the same time realize that there are pools of greater, how shall I say, enrichment of people from certain backgrounds in these different disciplines. And I think we need to be mindful about looking and recruiting from these pools as well. And we will be having upcoming workshops where the explicit goal will be to bring people in from different disciplines, that people that haven't even thought about neuroscience. And our goal, as with all the workshops, is to have broad representation of personal background in this. I think we've done a pretty good job of this so far, but the work is certainly ongoing, and this will be a way to get more diverse perspectives from these other disciplines outside of neuroscience.
Well, specifically like the courses, and I think the imaging group did it. The imaging, I think NIH went out and recruited engineers deliberately because they felt that expertise. We perhaps need to recruit other groups into the BRAIN, not just the engineers.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thanks, Elba. I think Kof was next.
Yeah, so I'm having a couple of thoughts that I'm trying to synthesize. The first one, particularly around this idea of the K99 and the R00. So I remember some conversations I was having early on in BRAIN when this mechanism was being considered. And it was my understanding that this was put in place because of the failure of the BRAIN initiative to mine talent from certain parts of our population, particularly women and underrepresented minorities. And so, I think it's important for us to keep in mind the inequities we're trying to address and the mechanisms we're using to try to address those inequities that are building in, and not necessarily frame that those issues or the strategies to address inequities are therefore inequities. Also, with regards to thinking more broadly, certainly there's a rich pool of international investigators. I was looking through some of the funding portfolios, but what I think is really important is for us to continue to set up systems that allow us to mine talent from this country as well. So that is not to the exclusion. It is, as we look across our portfolio, we should be constantly evaluating how good of a job we're doing for mining all the talent available. And I would say historically, NIH has not done well at all from mining talent from all parts of our population. And it is indeed our goal, both for solving the short-term problems, but also the long-term success of the enterprise and our country to figure out how to do that. So I always want us to think about that as we're determining what our target metrics are. It's both for solving the problems now, as well as establishing a workforce that continues to solve problems in the future.
Thanks, Kof. I appreciate that. I mean, these are big issues. It's not one issue. It's not one problem. And they all do kind of, they either intersect or they collide with each other. I'm not approaching the big problems as with a series of either or solutions. But the reality is, there are a bunch of fires we need to put out. And, it's going to require different attention on different fronts, but not to say that we're forgetting these other issues. And I do appreciate them being brought up. It's good to make sure we don't forget all the things that make science that we fund successful, and will make it more successful in the future. Okay.
Yeah. So yep. I know we still have 3 people with their hands up. I know we're out of time. Do you want to, we could have everybody say their question and see if there's maybe one answer that John could give to wrap up, or we could just try to
why don't we run through it, and I'll try to be brief, if we all try to be brief, and hopefully still have some time for a break before Kof's presentation.
So it was Mala, Stephen, and Jim.
Yeah, thanks. I'll try to be quick. This is a great discussion, and thanks for the presentations. So I was struck by the small number of applicants from women and minorities to BRAIN Initiative funding mechanisms. And I just wondered if you could say quickly how you think the PEDP will increase the number of applicants, because I guess I worry somewhat that since BRAIN is composed of a lot of multi-PI teams, that there's a disparity in women who are, or in minorities who are part of those teams or are leading those teams. And so how do you think the PEDP will actually shift the balance there? If PIs will be encouraged to include women and minorities in PI teams or to lead those teams, or will it just be, could it be just directed at, diversifying trainees? So yeah, that's the question.
But the PDP is intentionally, and also it's intentionally meant to be broad, to let people come in and tell us how they're going to do better science through this. To your point, Mala, I think the issue, if we just look at the specific issue of underrepresentation of women in our PI pool, it's at both the contact PI and the MPI level. So, arguably, we might see, I'm hoping we'll see an increase in the representation in both through this, but you might expect, and I don't know if this is a reasonable expectation, you might see a bump up in the MPI pool before you see a bump up in the contact PI pool. But we're really just putting it out there to tell people, be creative. This is an expectation on the part of BRAIN. Be creative. How you come to that solution will be up to how individuals and groups come to the solution will be up to them. But the reality is we're kind of dragging on both contact PIs as well as MPIs, and we just need to kind of get the ball rolling. And hopefully, again, we don't suffer from the illusion that this is going to fix it, right? There are no silver bullets here. What we're hoping to do is to take this first step toward changing the culture so that in a generative way, we will eventually get into a better place. And hopefully we'll know when we're getting closer.
And John, if I may just add on to that, I apologize, my video is not working, so I'm audio only. Just to add on to that, not only should investigators be creative about what they put into their plan, but it will be evaluated. It will be part of the score. It will be considered when we make funding recommendations. So that I think is a critical piece of this.
Okay, Steve.
So I'll just make a quick comment that can be addressed later, but maybe it ought to be a topic for the panel at the investigator meeting, which is, you know, Elba's comments about intersectionality put me in mind of just the plain academic risk for career advancement of people who want to be interdisciplinary or who are increasingly interdisciplinary, which I think is exacerbated when people are minorities in addition. And you know, having been a university provost for a decade, I watched you know, a small number of departments encourage and then promote interdisciplinary scholars, but for the most part, they were at a disadvantage because they were not always present in their department because they published in different journals than the rest of the department. I could go on, but I do think that especially for younger people advancing this program, you should just think about sort of career advice for, you know, how to survive in your institution and get tenure. And then there should be some, you know, I don't know how you do this, but some reminders to department chairs, to universities, that this is a stated fundable goal of the NIH, and that people shouldn't be at a disadvantage because they're publishing in a different journal. So let me stop there.
Thanks, Steve. That's a great set of points. And again, we need a culture change. I mean, the way we do science today is in some ways better, maybe in some ways not so much better, but it's different than it was even 10 years ago. And I think we all need to recognize that. I mean, not only in terms of faculty appointments and promotion, but also in the way we review grant applications, right? We need to find a different way of recognizing and assigning credit for what people are doing.
Absolutely, you just don't want to run these young kids into a buzzsaw if their institution hasn't gotten the memo. And just thinking about how to advance and protect their careers, I think is worth some time.
Yeah, and it's going to take all of us to kind of get that message across, and not just to get the message across, but actually to do it, right? To make sure it gets we get closer toward dealing with that.
Yeah.
Was there one last question? I want to make sure we have time for a break.
Jim, yep.
Jim.
Yep.
Sorry, I did have another question as it turns out. And I do want to start by saying thank you to Devon, Andrea, and Ryan for really a nice presentation. I guess, you know, the other aspect of this, I think the program is phenomenal. And my hope is that it's going to be as successful as we all envision that it might be. But one of the aspects that you didn't address with respect to this, and I think it's hard for NIH to do this, is that if the PEDP is going to be evaluated as part of the grant score, then we need to make sure that there's diversity represented on the CSR review teams and things like that to try to reach out and make sure that there's inclusion there. And I think that's always been a hard connection to make between the different components of NIH, but it'd really be important to do that for this initiative, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jim. I mean, we need to have diverse perspectives at every level. We're not just pushing it onto the investigators, the extramural investigators, and we're doing our best to hold ourselves to account. It's like establishing a credit rating. I mean, you know, as I think you all appreciate, our pool of reviewers comes from the pool of people working in or around the brain space, and you see the numbers. We're doing our best, but it's certainly something we are pushing hard to address.